Okay, this video is video 11. Welcome everybody. I just want to put a big shout out, Jagao, City Sharp, Captain Loz. Everybody's doing fantastic work, fantastic replications. Just look at that asymmetrical regauging in there. Jagao, awesome work, mate. That's fantastic. Look at the globe there. Look how white that globe is glowing. Now just a very brief look. There's 400 plus millivolts on channel 1, 376 on channel 2. That's awesome effort. Awesome. In this video we're going to very briefly discuss the transfer, according to science, the transfer of energy in a transformer. The secondary coil has absolutely no resupply chain or resupply avenue, if you like, of electrons. Electrons have a charge, they have a magnetic moment, magnetic field, and thus, as a result, they carry a mass. Anything that doesn't have mass to it has no, of all things, magnetic fields. Has no charge. So anything that has mass and therefore a gravitational effect, if you like, or gravitational application, if you like, all of that is related directly to charge and magnetic field. So every time we have a transformer, every time we push current through the primary, science tells us that there's a transformation of energy going on, and the energy is transformed through to the secondary, and the secondary thus then supplies a current to the load, voltage and then current. Now what's not brought up anywhere, there's zero discussion of it, is where do the electrons come from? The electrons have a mass, magnetic field, as just discussed, and over a period of time we see something that is never discussed anywhere. It's just not talked about, period. You can see here the mass of one electron is that figure there. Okay, this is according to my rough math, and other people might be able to do a better job than what I have. So each electron has that mass in kilograms. Mass is a kilogram unit. The mass of 1 ampere is that figure there. Now to get 1 kilogram, if we were to talk about charge moving through the wire in the form of electrons, if you want to consider as electrons as the source of charge, the source of current, obviously current is required, the charge and the movement of it, then we end up with 175 billion 924,538,911.841 amperes is the equivalent of 1 kg of mass. Okay, so you've got to ask the question, once we lose a kg of mass in the form of amperes to the load, where does that mass come from? Where does the mass come from? I know that mass is not directly energy, but Einstein's mass-energy equivalence tells us that energy is equivalent to mass at the speed of light squared. So where does the mass come from? There is absolutely zero electrical coupling from the primary coil to the secondary coil. Okay, there is no supply chain whatsoever of electrons to the secondary coil. There is only a magnetic field and a core. Through electromagnetic induction is what gets charge moving. Obviously the voltage, we've been through it a million times, but where does the mass come from? Where is the mass going? Where does the mass come from, and what happens to the mass? Never ever discussed in any physics lecture, in any paper anywhere. I've never seen a paper on it ever. Where does the mass go? Okay, and an ampere of current, look at how big an ampere of current is. And you've got to remember that in some of these coils, the ampere of current is moving through the wire at close to the speed of light. Depending on what papers you read, some say that electrons move very, very slowly, but other papers say that 6.24 times 10 to the 18th electrons per second past point P is 1 ampere. So unless we've somehow redefined 1 ampere and not told everybody about it, then we're in big trouble. So, mass in the coil. The secondary coil is capable of delivering electrons which have charge, which have a magnetic field, which have a mass to them of this number here per electron, is delivering electrons to the load. The load is, apparently according to science, consuming the power. And basically it's being transformed, and most of the time it's being transformed into heat. So we have a huge dilemma. kgs in the form of mass, in the form of amperes, is not being explained. We have a huge gaping hole in science that no one is really game to pick up the ball and run with. It's Einstein's mass energy equivalence, but no one ever explains, well, hang on a minute, where the source of electrons, how is the secondary coil supplying the source of electrons? What happens to the electrons when they are removed from the coil? Does the coil lose weight? Is there something that, can we prove after an hour's running of 3 amperes or something like that, can we measure the weight? Is there an experiment we can perform to try and get a bit better of an idea on what's going on? We have a dilemma, and it's not being explained. It's not being explained anywhere. No one picks up the ball and no one tries to explain any of this. So I would like to put forward that yes, there is a problem there. I'd like to put forward the same as what Floyd Sweet talked about. I'd like to say that the coil itself, the copper, the structure of the copper, is capable of losing electrons and then regaining electrons. That the electrons, when they are lost in the coil, in the atomic structure, as the electrons move up to a higher orbital, and then as they are pushed, if you like, or discarded as free electrons, okay, because the outer orbital electrons start to electron hop between the orbitals of the electrons, of the atoms, and then thus are able to therefore become a current. Now, a magnetic field is what drives these processes, and the magnetic field must change in time, and that is the exact equivalent to a current changing in time. Current is the same as a magnetic field. One is the other. One creates the other. So we have a process here of being able to manipulate the charge inside the copper structures of the wire, and once the copper structure has been manipulated, then it is free to carry a current under certain conditions, and the current can be lost, or if you like, moved. Now this is an important statement. I just want to really pause here so that people really do understand what we're actually saying, that the mass itself travels down the wire. The mass has a charge to it, the mass has a magnetic field to it, and if it didn't have a charge and a magnetic field, we wouldn't be able to move it. It's therefore a magnetic field that allows these charges to move, a changing magnetic field externally to the wire. Again, this is electromagnetic induction. So we have a problem. We have a problem that the amperes that are measured on the terminals of the wire are effectively the mass inside the wire that has a magnetic field, it has a charge, that is being moved. Now, if you listen to some of the old lectures and books and stuff like that about gravity, then that's what the rotational field or the Lenz-Thirring effect is. Okay, is the mass being moved. and it's got to be moved within a particular frame in space and in time. So we have something that is directly related to each other, and science pretty much admits that electromagnetism and gravity are related, and we sort of see now a little bit more clearly why that might be the case. Because if we're moving enough mass, and if the mass has a charge to it, then the charge that is moving, or the mass that's moving, therefore will affect, if you like, the gravitational field. It's basically the same as the Earth spinning around the Sun, or the Earth spinning around itself. So back to our question, where does the mass go? Where does the mass come from? The secondary coil itself is never resupplied with any electrons. We don't need to recharge the secondary coil. The secondary coil just sits there and keeps supplying a current as long as we've got certain conditions that the secondary coil is exposed to, which is not electrical conditions. We have no electrical condition that produces the electrons, that gets the electrons moving. It's a magnetic condition, a changing current externally to the coil. There is no electron resupply chain to the coil at all. A huge dilemma, something that people need to start thinking about. Now the reason I bring this up, and the reason I'm trying to get this point across the way I am, is the simple fact that electromagnetic induction is a what's the best way to explain it? Electromagnetic induction is a law, if you like, that science tells us the approximation of an EMF. An EMF is a voltage, or at least an EMF is measured in the form of volts. So we basically are predicting the voltage, but we're not predicting the current. Now the current is a very strange thing. If you listen to some of the things that Don Smith said, for example, Don Smith talks about one coil supplying a current and the other supplying a voltage. I don't entirely agree with the statements that he made, but he if you sort of bend those statements around a little bit, you can understand why he made them. The current itself must be supported, and that's pretty much what Floyd Sweet said. And that's why he was talking about the mass movement and then supporting a mass, and that's what that basically means. That's what Floyd Sweet was talking about. The current itself is the roller coaster ride, if you like, of electrons within the wire. We already know this. Now the electrons are only excited and will only move if they're put under a pressure, and the pressure is opposing magnetic fields. You must have at least one opposing magnetic field to make the electrons flow, or to keep the electrons flowing. And the rate of flow of the electrons is entirely dependent on the strength of the magnetic field. So our machines that we are building here, which Jigao is perfectly on the right track, same with CD Sharp, same with Captain Loz and various others, are perfectly on the right track to show that the pumping here is the asymmetrical regauging, which is up to a 90% or more off time of the input. So our input can be off and our machine is still supplying current to the load, which might seem impossible to some people, but for those that have been following and listening and studying and all that sort of thing, all our work, then all that makes sense. And why does it make sense? Because we know that the supply of electrons to a secondary coil is got nothing to do with the primary coil. It's got nothing to do with the actual transforming of energy whatsoever. The supply of electrons comes entirely from the coil itself, entirely from the conductive mass within the wire itself. So again, I just want to say well done guys, this is awesome work. CD, Captain Loz. Awesome work. This is really great to see you guys making such huge progress. Remembering that the voltage that we get our output coils, partnered output coils, the voltage we get them up to will be roughly, or at least the average will be half of our peak. And when I say peak, will be half of the peak of the triangle waveform. So once we get our sawtooth wave up, the peak potential here, because it's a linear decrease, we're going to see roughly the average over time will be half of that. So we've got to get that peak up to almost double or about double of where we're sort of aiming. So if you aim for, say, 20 volt peak here, and remembering this is current and we're measuring current, but the voltage and current will almost follow each other identically because it's almost a zero resistance load. So voltage and current is going to be pretty much in phase. It will be almost exactly the same. So if we go 20 volt peak up here, and then our average voltage over time will be 10 volts. So guys, well done. I just want to say fantastic work. Keep up the good effort. We are not just a little bit ahead of the other guys, we are light years ahead of the others. Okay, the other forums are not even close. They're not even close to where we are. They've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of man hours of work to do before they even get close to where we are. Guys, if we stay on track, remember, try and help the new people coming in. Stay on track, and remember, it's the time rate of change of the magnetic fields that gives us the voltage. So the faster that this little thing happens in here, the higher that the voltage is going to be. Okay, so remembering our coils, our partnered output coils, slap together really hard in this period here in the on time, and how hard our output coils slap together is dependent on the voltage. Okay, remembering our ocean wave that we saw, might actually play that again now. I'll play that video now for you.
Nature is so dramatic, isn't it? Very dramatic. Wow. Wow. Like symphony.
Okay, so the faster that the ocean waves slap together in the opposite directions, the higher the potential will be. Okay, and to make our coils slap together faster, it's our input coil that does that. Okay, now by putting less turns on the input coil of a higher wire gauge, we'll make our input coils, we'll make our partnered output coils slap together faster, which is the rise over run that we talked about in the other videos. So if we want to get the voltage up to, say, 20 volts, and we work out that at the current frequency that we're working at and the current duty cycle, then we've got this particular rise over run. Then we need to look at the factor and say, right, we need double that, so we're going to half our input turns, or we're going to double our input wire gauge to get the rise, so the current over time, to get that higher, so that our partnered output coils slap together harder. Okay, and remembering it's like two ocean waves. Each coil is an ocean wave. The current in the coil, the magnetic field in the coil is like the ocean wave. We've got to get them slapping together as hard as we can and as fast as we can, so that we can get our voltages up, so that over time our voltage and current will then follow. Okay, it's pure power we're dealing with. We're not dealing with any phase angles or anything like that. We're not dealing with reactance on the output. There's, these coils are putting out pure power. power and voltage, or current and voltage, which are in phase, out to the load. And remembering, it can only be in phase if we're using resistive loads. So you use a resistive load like a globe or something like that, and the voltage and the current will be pretty much in phase. It might be maybe 1 or 2 degrees or something out at absolute maximum. So again, we are light years ahead of the other guys. Just very quickly, I want to put a bit of a shout out to old mate Tin Man. I put a little bit of a video out a few months back, just after Tin Man released this video and made huge, great big whopping claims that it was all his idea and everything like that. It looks like I might have upset him, perhaps. Mate, I'm not out to upset you. If you're upset over that, then it's because you've done the wrong thing. So maybe try doing the right thing, and then you won't get quite so upset in the future. Like I said, the invitation to join our forum still stands. But you alone, none of your friends are allowed to come over because they're nothing but troublemakers. So you are welcome to join our forum if you wish and come and be part of something better. Anyway, I just wanted to say, if you're upset, then perhaps start doing the right thing, and maybe it won't upset you so much next time I come back at you. Anyway, so back on track. Our energy machines are miles ahead of everybody else. So if you want energy, if you want to learn energy, then you need to come to us. You need to learn from us, and you need to learn what we're teaching you. These machines work. Okay, there is so much proof now. We surpass the proof even for probably ball lightning. So if you want proof, then read our forums. I haven't marked my particular thread. Here as above Unity yet, for the simple reason is I'm not trying to flash gold coins in front of people's faces. People take it for what it is. If you want energy, then you need to come and learn what we are doing. It's as simple as that. There's not another forum, there's not another person, there's no one else out there that's trying to teach, to try and share, to try and give what I am giving as what I'm giving. We have so much proof now, it's beyond debate. Those people that are in debate mode are in denial mode. So come, learn, share, build, be part of something better, be part of the future. For everybody that has kids, you truly and honestly need to start thinking about their future and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so on and so forth. The future of planet Earth depends on what we do right now. Okay, there are people in control of planet Earth that do not have your best interests at heart. Like I've said to you before, the Lester Hendershot situation way back in the 1920s was when the American military was working with Lester Hendershot on motors and all that sort of thing. I mean, these are just some of the articles. 1928, there's articles everywhere, hundreds of articles. These guys were testing the motors and generators and all that sort of thing at the airfield. There were so many people involved, it just wasn't funny. Let's have a quick look at this article. So Colonel Charles A. Lindbergh, famous guy, in the papers everywhere. Now, I very much doubt he would have put his name to something like this if it didn't work. Major Thomas A. Lamphere, again, wouldn't have put his name to it if it didn't work. They had a motor that was running at 1800 revolutions per minute that would last up to 2,000 to 3,000 hours with no fuel. It used electromagnetism. Okay, so these things were tested. These things were in aeroplanes, flying aeroplanes. Yeah, they were testing them. Lindbergh did a flight in one of the aeroplanes. There is enough proof there to say that it didn't only hit the papers, but it was all over the show in 1928. So there are people hiding very important information from you. Your history has been stolen. Okay, there are crooks involved in hiding this, people that need to be locked up, people that need to be put in jail, these people are traitors of humanity. And there is no other term to describe them. They are absolute 100% traitors. These people have stolen your history. So if that doesn't make you mad, if that doesn't start thinking, well, these people need to, be brought to justice, well, I hope one day that they are, because they are traitors of humanity. Okay, good people have tried to do the right thing for years, and these people have squashed them. So I want justice. I want these crooks, I want these evil people to have justice served on them. And the fastest way to have justice served on them is to share this publicly, is to get this shared out to your friends, is to get all your friends building these machines, sharing these machines. I've shown you that they work. I know I've shown you how simple they are. I've shown you how cheap they are. Okay, you can do it for $20 and an hour's on the bench. You've got to just learn it. It's the only requirement, is you've just got to learn it. Okay, so it does work. These are simple experiments. I'm in Jagao, CD Sharp. You'll be able to, come forward and say, well, look, I spent an hour on it and I'm getting results already. They are so simple. Yes, there's a little bit of fiddling to it. Yes, there's a little bit of understanding to it, but all you need is 3 coils. You realistically only need 1 diode. You could do it with 1 diode if you wanted to. A MOSFET that you can switch at, a wide range of frequencies with a wide range of duty cycles, and it works. You can make it work. It's very, very simple, very, very cheap, very, very easy. You don't need to go to all sorts of expense building great big machines that rotate and do this and do that and do everything else. You don't need to do it. It's as simple as that. You can do it with 3 coils, just as I've shown you. It is so simple, it's not funny. Please, I urge you, build, share, replicate, do all you can possibly do to bring these evil traitors of humanity to justice. It's time the human race stood up and stood strong and did the right thing for our next generation. We've got to do it for our next generation.